Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Pop Culture Therapy. I'm Advent Nebula.
And I'm Cruellica Kain.
And as last time, we promised we'd be taking a character analysis on a villain for a therapy chair. And we decided to go with a very popular one that's also kind of a genocidal maniac, Frieza. And what makes him so popular for being such a despicable yet lovable character?
And I think one of the concerns we really want to talk about is, in pop culture or even entertainment terms, is he actually technically considered a xenophobe or a racist?
Because he's wiped out countless planets just because they offended him or ended up having a prophecy that it would be his demise.
So, for anyone who doesn't know where Frieza comes from, and if you don't, oh my god, what hole have you sat in for all of your life? He is from the Dragonball universe, primarily in Dragon Ball Z and then Super.
And he's the emperor of the universe.
He is, and it's kind of interesting how he got there. So, Frieza is the second son of the former emperor,
King Cold.
King Cold. He also has a brother named Cooler, who's only been featured in the films, not the actual series universe.
And the video games, none of that's canonical.
Sure. So, Frieza, ever since he was kind of a child, has always been bred to be the ruler of the world.
Not just the world, the universe.
Very true. And where we actually get to see him is on the planet Namek, where he is working to destroy the Namekians while obtaining the Dragon Balls.
All because of the prophecy of the Saiyans.
And that prophecy you really get to see in the Bardock special.
Not just the Bardock special, but again with the Brawly movie. You get to see that again with the Super Brawly movie, what that actually entailed.
So, Frieza wipes an entire planet that has been loyal to him. All because of the thought of a Super Saiyan.
One that could betray him and defeat him. And he kind of created his own mess in the process.
He did. He did fulfill his own prophecy by wiping out a culture, because as we can learn with just evolution, when you wipe out a culture, you can actually create a mutant form that becomes stronger to survive, which is essentially what happened here.
Yep, that's what, and Goku ended up defeating Frieza. But
Did he though?
He just sent him to hell.
Yeah, but he conned his way out of there, too.
Yeah, Goku's an idiot. We have established this as a previous podcast. Goku is an idiot.
Yes.
He's also a Father of the Year material, as we joke.
Oh, yeah. No, we're going to do a Father's Day episode. I have to. That's a goal. But nevertheless, Frieza is one of the most popular characters. The reason why I say it like that is because he was not supposed to be like this big bad. He was expected to have his arc, but after his arc was completed, he was not technically supposed to return. He was dead. D-E-D, dead.
And then Resurrection F comes along with the second Super movie, and Frieza returns because of how popular he had been on spin-off material.
And Frieza is a perfect example within the therapy chair aspect of why we love our villains. And this is a particular villain that is quite concerning. He's xenophobic.
Genocidal.
He's racist, technically, because even though he doesn't particularly have a race, he is very focused on he is the perfect being.
I'm the perfect being. Everybody else serves me or they die.
Which is, in a very simplistic method, the actual definition of racism. If you don't fit my mold, you are not part of my group. And it's sad because so many people value him as a character, and you look at the traits as just outside of the character story. And you're like, wow.
And then his Universe 6 counterpart is basically a humanitarian version of him.
You go to so extreme. I still remember that in Super when we see the counterpart to Frieza, and he's generous, he helps people, he's supporting the world, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how I feel right now.
And he got manipulated by Frieza.
Yeah, and I'm like, do I want my Frieza back, or do I want to stay with this one? And I think why people like Frieza so much, in my particular opinion, is he's extremely charismatic, and he's very forthright.
And it's not just the actors portraying him, it's the writing Toriyama has done with Frieza to give him that charismatic self-interest of him. You can't help but enjoy the character.
Exactly, because he's, unlike other villains, he's not sympathetic. There is no redeeming quality. Even when you see him within all of Super, there's nothing redeeming because he still betrays everyone anytime he can.
And he's only about self-preservation the whole time.
And the other thing you find out as you go along throughout the series is he has not once ever shown his full power.
Yeah, and there's only one being in the entire universe he fears, and that's Beerus.
Yeah, because technically, with the way Super set it up still, after Resurrection F as well, is Frieza is technically still leaps and bounds stronger than Goku and Vegeta, who are technically two of the strongest beings.
Yeah.
He's even technically, in a way, stronger than Beerus. The only reason he isn't officially is because Beerus has, obviously, God Mod.
Yeah.
But you have a character who is so strong that he can take out an entire planet with the tip of his finger.
And the only character who's actually proven to be stronger than him just because his ego gets in his way is Goku. Every time he's about to win, his ego gets in the way.
And that's really what it is. That's his downfall. Is his ego 100%. He would make Freud quit.
Yeah.
Because, as Kaiju always jokes, you have ego, super ego, and id. There is no room for anything else when you have a super ego.
And that's just what Frieza is, just one giant super ego.
Absolutely. And he is so backstabbing that when we're in the Frieza saga in DBZ, he actually kills his own men alongside killing everyone else.
And the same thing happens in Resurrection F. When a few of them start running away, he's like, nope. And when he gets resurrected, the one soldier that was like, I was so loyal to you to resurrect you, kills him. As soon as he gets out of the tank, just because he said something wrong.
So, the question that we have here is, first, why is Frieza valued? I know we started to answer that with the charisma, but I think he's also valued because he represents something in ourselves that we don't particularly like, but we know exists. And this is not to say that we're all psychopathic racists that want to destroy the world, but we all want to have ultimate control over our own decision making and our own lives.
Yeah, and Frieza has achieved that.
He has. He has taken the next step of being in control of everything he does, which we as a people don't have the ability to do. I think the next question is, how is Frieza so long-lasting?
It's gotta be not just his personality, his charisma, and how well written it is. He's iconic in the Dragon Ball universe as well.
He is. He is even without Cell or Boo, he is really the one villain that has really pushed the envelope of how everything is done. He killed Krillin, which everybody loves Krillin. He nearly killed Gohan. He killed Vegeta when he had his coming to redemption moments.
And he's made Vegeta look like a bitch on numerous of occasions.
He did. And I think and I'm going to say for Japanese audiences, this helps. Now, here's a question I have for you. Do you think Frieza would be as popular in America if not for the, at least 3 to 4 year break that we had in the middle of the Frieza saga?
Probably not.
Because we have a lot of villains in the United States that are very similar to Frieza in our comic books. Because we can look at one in just Hydra.
Yeah.
Hydra is very similar in motive outside of not being an alien.
And you can see that with modern comic books that have been done. Villains not just pulled from the American stereotypes, but you can see some of these creators have watched Dragon Ball and have pulled Frieza from their canon as well.
Well, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Echoes, is basically...
It's on Cell.
Is Cell and Frieza combined together.
Yeah.
So that is the one thing I wanted to really focus on now, because in the United States, we had a large gap where there was some disputes with the licensing, dubbing company. There's a lot of different reasons.
All you have to know is Saban to Funimation. That took a 3.5 year jump, and that's why I went from Ocean to Funimation doing it in-house on the dubbing.
And so you had a very long break where you were midway through the Frieza saga. And diehard fans that are old enough to remember this time, and sadly I was one of them, you always get to that last episode and you're like, okay, why are we back to the first episode? Or why are we back to Tree of Might? Or what have you. So there was a long gap where the Frieza saga was not complete, and they had to redub it.
And it got even better. They had to start dubbing with the new cast where they left off in the Frieza saga, and it took 4 years before they went back to redub.
So the middle of the season, or the arc, had a brand new cast, had no idea what was going on, and even the scripts changed.
Because the scripts got more accurately translated, but the music on the flip side got changed.
So you had a lot of changes to it, and so I will admit that's the one surprising thing for the United States, because we did have such a long break. And for the older groups, I wonder, especially for yourself, would you have cared about Frieza if you got through that entire arc as it was with that 5 minutes? That was like, what, 10 episodes?
And here's the funny thing. I didn't even get a chance to watch the Frieza arc until it was fully dubbed by Funimation.
So you're lucky. I watched it, and I will say that was one of the things that probably gripped me, because I'm like waiting and waiting and waiting. But thinking back on it, would fans still be fans if they got to see it from a different perspective? And does it change based on the American perspective and the Japanese perspective?
I don't think so, though. I really don't think so, because a lot of the more fans that have gotten to Dragon Ball over the last 10 years are only really familiar with the Funimation side of things.
And I will admit that the Frieza arc is the most well-developed of all the arcs. While a lot of people really do like the Android/Cell arc, I think for story writing purposes, it doesn't feel as fluid as it does with Frieza.
Yeah. And I will give credit, the woman that voiced Frieza in the dub originally for Funimation, she actually did a pretty good job to sell the character's villainy But I don't think Frieza really took off to where it is now until Ayers and Damon Mills have both what they've done with Frieza now.
I will agree. Both of them, and
they capture Ryusei Nakao essence in that charismatic, I may be an asshole, but I'm a lovable asshole.
And for anyone who's not aware, the primary voice actor for Frieza is technically Chris Ayers. However, because if you aren't familiar, he's been having a lot of health issues. He had COPD and had to have
a double lung transplant.
And has been still, especially with the pandemic, going in and out of the hospital because there have been complications. Damon Mills is technically considered his understudy. But because he can actually mimic his voice so closely,
you can't tell the difference.
You can never tell the difference. And there are times, from what he has said in an interview, that he has actually done a lot of the work for Chris, but they try to make sure it syncs up to the point where you would never know. And I think that's fascinating, because if something were to happen to Chris, and God forbid not, but at least we can still have that fluidity in a character.
Especially considering he's back in the hospital again right now, if anybody's paying attention to social media, with complications from his transplant in 2019.
Well, with everything going on pandemic-wise and everything being respiratory, that doesn't help either. But what I think has really sold Frieza, more so than just DBZ, is really Resurrection F. I think watching that movie for me, while I may not have been a diehard fan for him in DBZ, which obviously he was written not to be your favorite character, even though people have failed at that, Resurrection F really changed the dynamic of how he was presented, especially for more of a modern audience.
And it put some gray layers into Frieza's character as well. Yes, he's a genocidal emperor of the universe, but at the same time, he does care about what happens to the universe when you see his interaction with Beerus and Weiss.
And then, when watching him in the rest of Super, when he actually comes in as a character, it's actually quite fascinating to watch him negotiate with another universe and actually scare the gods of said universe to the point they don't even know which end is up.
Yeah. And then the Brawly movie. Manipulating Brawly and then getting owned.
And
it's like, it's the karma all over again.
Now, the last question I do have is, do we want a redemption story for Frieza?
You're kind of getting it right now in the Galactic Patrol arc in the manga.
But do you want a true redemption where he's actually, like Vegeta, a true good guy? Or do you want a redemption, or if we do get an actual redemption arc, do we want him to be redeemed where he's still kind of that anti-hero that you got with, like, the likes of Char, and even in other series, I'm trying to think, you could probably even say with, like, Cowboy Bebop, because Spike is kind of that anti-hero-ish.
I say no, you gotta keep that villainy with Frieza to actually keep him a compelling character.
Because that's my fear. That was originally my fear with Vegeta. When he started to become that hero.
But Vegeta stayed pretty much the anti-hero antithesis to what Goku is.
Until Super.
Yep, and you kind of saw it with GT as well, even though that's not canon.
Thank God.
Vegeta as a dad is what turned Vegeta into an actual redeemable character that you can't help but enjoy.
Which I can respect that. Having him become more redeemable, like he even did in Super, because he was acting more like a dad, makes so much more sense than what it was. But then again, at the same time in the Buu Saga, when he flipped the script and wanted to become evil again because he was so sick of being good, I thought that was actually almost like a character assassination at the same time. But my fear for Frieza is I don't want him to become purely a good guy.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what... Because animation-wise, I think it's going to be a while before we see the Moro and Galactic Patrol arcs animated. With Frieza's current involvement in the Galactic Patrol arc, I'm like, where are they going with this, but at the same time, their focus is more on Vegeta now potentially surpassing Goku.
Which I actually honestly believe he should.
Yeah.
I've always been more of a Vegeta fan than a Goku fan.
But it just goes to show you Goku cares a little too much about how self-centered, but that also ties into Frieza because Goku and Frieza are the polar opposites of each other.
But they're so alike at the same time.
Yeah.
That, I think, is really what Frieza's downfall was in the actual Frieza arc in DBZ, is he never found someone who had his kind of drive, for lack of a better word. Not that Goku is the smartest cookie in the bunch.
Goku just has a drive to be the strongest, where Frieza has a drive to be the most powerful.
Mm-hmm. And I think it ties very well together because they both misunderstand the point. And, as you said before, Ryusei Nakao, especially if you listen to it in Japanese, is such an actor. Even though you just see animation on screen, you can hear his passion and love for the character.
Any of his roles that he's been associated with for a long time, you just hear his passion when
Absolutely.
He's doing it. And I've had a chance to meet the man in person. He enjoys acting a lot, and he has said that he brings out his A game no matter what the script is to try and bring the character into its own, which there are not a lot of actors that'll do that.
No, and I think that's the important part, because you can read words on a page. Anybody can read words on a page. But it's all about how you read them and how you actually emote them to connect to your audience, which is the reason why I think Chris Ayres does a fantastic job on the flip side in English, because he doesn't solely just read words on a page. He tries to actually get into the mindset of the character. Not overly method, but still.
And that's another reason why Frieza has his staying power here as a popular character.
And I'm actually happy with the fact that Frieza was the one selected to be the staying power type character, because I don't believe that Cell has a staying power. And while we can agree that Boo is still around,
he's just there to be Hercule's understudy, basically.
Exactly. He's not actually anything but a blob of bubblegum who likes to eat and hang out with his Hercule.
Yeah, he's just there to be a comic relief character now, where Frieza still has that threat.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though he may work with them, you never know when he will turn on them.
Exactly. With Boo, as long as Hercule's around, or Mr. Satan, depending on what you prefer to call him.
Or now, as Toriyama has confirmed, his actual canonical name is Hercule Satan.
Which makes sense. But, wow, that's kind of scary to think that Videl's last name is Satan. But actually makes sense, because her name is basically an anagram for devil. But I don't know why it took me this long to actually think about that. And I don't know why I'm thinking about it now, but I am. At the end of it all, Frieza is a great character study in pop culture of how long someone can stay popular, because Frieza has been around since, I think, the late 80s.
He was created around the same time Stardust Crusaders arc with Dio, so you kind of got, if you actually think about it, considering the Frieza arc and Stardust Crusaders are both running and Shonen Jump at the same time, both villains kind of have the same kind of...
Oh, with Dio as well. Yeah, that makes sense. And they're friends at the same time, so obviously they're going to mimic each other.
Manga authors with Toriyama and Araki are friends, as you can see with JoJo's later on.
Exactly. So Frieza's been around for nearly 40 years. And to have that much of a staying power for an animated character, because we don't have too many anime characters. We all talk about our love for like Astro Boy or Speed Racer, but
shonen action characters, you don't have the staying power like this.
They don't. And the reason why people talk about them is because they're part of like the history of animation. Whereas Frieza is talked about even in the here and now as such a cool character. And the only other villain we've really had that much staying power for that I think everybody still references is Darth Vader.
Yeah. It really is. I really can't think of any, maybe Char Aznable, but that'd be about it when I can think of ones that have that kind of staying power.
Exactly. And it's very rare that you have a villain, and we can all name our favorite villains, but it's very rare when you have a villain that is so impressionable upon your viewpoints of what villains should be like. Because he really does check off all the boxes for what you expect of a good villain and what you want of a villain that you can quote all the time.
Yeah. And then video games as a medium have some of them as well, but they don't have the lines or the memorability scenes because of the 8 and 16-bit eras when a lot of them debuted. It's more of modern gaming where as they keep recurring back, and I'm basically looking at Nintendo for this as well.
Well, yes. And if you think about it on the video game realm, the one character that everybody references, good, bad, or otherwise, is Sephiroth.
Sephiroth and Ganondorf.
Yes, Ganondorf from Zelda. And so, but like you said, they started out in 8-bit, and when the 8-bit era was around, yes, people still remember those characters, especially if you liked 8-bit gaming, but because there's such a love for modern gaming that are more realistic, it took many years for those characters to come back and play a part in that zeitgeist of everybody referencing them still.
Yeah. So, I really don't have much anything else to comment on this.
No, I don't think I do either. I'm just happy that we got to do character study, especially of a character that is beloved. And I'm looking forward to doing another one of these.
As am I. We'll think about another villain to do down the line. The one thing that I will say is that Frieza as a character arc, by far, still has to be one of the most memorable in Shonen that we have, and we probably will not get another one of these style characters in our lifetimes, I'm thinking.
No, not especially with what we were talking about early on, with him being that xenophobic and racist sort of character. Our culture internationally is changing, where we're trying to back off from those type of characters because do we want to popularize characters that are of those types of terms that are actually so despicable for the reality of the world?
I mean, Demon Slayer has their villain that's kind of in the frame of Frieza, but he's so despicable you can't help but hate him, even though he kind of looks like Michael Jackson.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a bad thing either.
Yeah.
But,
So, with that, next episode, and it's because both of us have been on a kick recently, and we will probably take a couple week break to get our gears together, but what I want to do next is talk about some of our favorite and cheesiest B movies.
oh, God.
Because this is a genre that we both love, but some people just scoff it off as yesterday's trash and won't give it a chance, but for us, it's comedy gold or just something we sweetly enjoy.
Oh, yes. I agree. B-movies are incredible, and they should be beloved for what they are. Even if they're cheesy as all get out, they're still needed to demonstrate why movies are good.
Yeah. I mean, even though we love our B movies, we even love our C and D movie trash.
Oh, yeah. I love all levels of trash. The problem is I'm married to someone who doesn't understand my levels of trash.
And we have one friend that even the both of us go look at some of his movie choices and just shake our heads.
Yeah, but we will have a fun time sharing our B through D movie trash. And it's not going to be regulated to just horror, because while there are tons that are in the horror realm,
there are some comedies, there are some action films that you can find, and I have seen my fair share of trashy action films.
oh, well, basically anything Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I love Miami Connection.
I watched them, I'm not saying, but nevertheless, we will look forward to you on the next episode. Bye!